Good morning, my friends, and welcome. This is Father Marcus from the Costa Blanca Anglican Chaplaincy. And I'll tell you what, I've woken up bright and sparkling this morning, I really have. And the reason is because yesterday evening we had our carol service in La Merced Church in Calpe. And we were very concerned because of the restrictions that are in place about capacity and singing and all sorts of things. We couldn't have the sort of celebration that we normally have. We normally have two choirs that come and sing beautifully, and the choirs, of course, boost their numbers, and people come to hear the choirs, and they're invited by choir members, and we advertise it thoroughly all over the place. And our church is packed, and we have a beautiful, beautiful carol service, and everybody loves the singing of carols and the telling of the stories. And this year we had to do it very differently. And some lovely, lovely people at Calpe Church worked alongside me, putting together a service which had an awful lot less singing in it. And we decided if it was going to be different, it had to be very different. It couldn't just look like the poor relation of an ordinary carol service. So we thought very deeply about it and made it quite a different and beautiful event. Everybody had to wear their masks. And of course, it revolved around a number of things. It revolved around the biblical telling of the story of the foretelling and birth of Jesus Christ. And of course, it included the shepherds and the wise men and everything like that. And a key part very near the beginning was all the members of the congregation were given one of those beautiful red votive candles, which were lit and presented as an offering of joy and thanksgiving by those who were there. And the whole idea, Christ the light shining in our dark world, and us receiving that light and offering it to others in celebration. So that was beautiful. It really was beautifully done. And we had wonderful, wonderful music playing both before and at the end of the service. And we did sing a few traditional carols in the middle of it. And as I said, the biblical telling of the story. But it was interspersed with other events, poems and non-biblical readings and reflections and thoughts. And it was a huge mixture. It wasn't all deep pious stuff by any means. It was joyful, it was celebratory, but it was also designed to make us think deeply and reflect. And quite a lot of it revolved around our expectations of what we were thinking and what we were hoping for when it comes to Christmas. And there was one particular reading, which was a key reading, it was entitled, "What Kind of Messiah Are You?" And it was a poem about someone trying to decide whether or not the Messiah was going to be right for them before they decided to commit themselves fully to following that Messiah. And it was asking questions like whether or not if I follow you, my football team's going to be top of the league, or I'm going to win the pools, or you're going to solve all of my problems, or make sure that I never lose my job, or make sure I can find a parking space, and if you're going to treat everybody nicely, particularly the people that I like. And it was an incredible thing, because it just made us reflect on whether or not we try and impose some of our own values on who we wish Jesus was, and whether or not we get a little bit self-centered in our wishes for how God would act. And then, if that wasn't enough, as it was great, the whole idea of giving. We talk about faith itself being a gift, and at Christmas time, we love to give gifts to one another, and those gifts are expressions of our love and affection for those who are dear to us. But we had a great telling of the 12 days of Christmas. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree, and it unfolded the story of the giver and Agnes, the recipient, and how Agnes was so delighted and moved at the beginning with the partridge in a pear tree and thought it was wonderful and romantic. But as the gifts, many of them which, if you remember, revolve around birds, started to build up, it started to get a little bit more weird and a little bit more uncomfortable and a little bit more uh, difficult for her, and all these responsibilities coming in her, and then all these birds taking over her house, and then the whole thing was just an absolute nightmare. And she moved from being delighted and thinking it was romantic to ended up being aggressive, and she ended up in an asylum, poor soul. And of course, it reminds us that gifts are so important when they're given with thought and with love and with affection. And of course, the gifts that we're given by God are given with thought and love and affection. And it's such a beautiful thing to receive these gifts, and the gift of faith and the gifts of the Spirit and the gifts that we receive, which are designed to build the kingdom of God. And so we had this humorous looking at the gifts, and then some of our other expectations about Christmas and about what it means. And just to remind ourselves that, of course, turkey and tinsel and stupid hats and crackers have all got their place, and they're all wonderful, and they bring joy and they get us together. But the story of Christmas is about the birth of Jesus, and it's the beginning of the story that he tells, and this message of love and peace and reconciliation and putting other people before ourselves. And in particular, we reflected on how joyful it is to encourage children not to just think it's about stuff and things, but it has the meaning of the message of Christ. And in the midst of all of that, we had two beautiful reflective readings. We've had them before in Calvary Church and in other churches in the chaplaincy, but they were so fitting last night. We had Mary, bless her, the day that she had given birth to Jesus, and she's reflecting on the love that she has for him and how precious he is, and what a beautiful thing it is to have a most glorious baby. And she wants to hang on to him. She wants that gift of that child to be hers and to last forever. And she longs for the precious feelings that every mother has to continue. But she also reflects that the whole world is crying out for the Christ child, and she's got to share him. She's got to let him go. And it's moving, it's beautiful, it's not heart-wrenching and grief-stricken. It's stunning, because Mary says yes to God, and that is so great. And then we had a reading which is like a voice from one of the shepherds, who in the past had struggled to make any sense of God, because God was some great thing up in the clouds, and it wasn't for ordinary people like him, and God was for the intellectuals and for important people and for others. And this great mysterious being that was the source of everything, the shepherd couldn't get his head round it. But as he held this tiny baby and spoke nonsense to it, he understood that Jesus, that God is present, is with us, and he will never leave us and never abandon us. And it all made sense. And it speaks volumes, that reading, because so many of us can't get our heads around this great mystery, which is the Creator, the God of the universe, this great mystery which is wrapped in theology. But we can grasp the beauty of the miracle of life, and we can grasp the depth of the meaning of the teaching of someone who tells us stories and shows us examples. And we haven't got to have a faith which is the same as the faith of the saints, or the same as the faith of people who are absolutely certain about God spoken to them and told them what to do this day. We've got to have a faith, I believe, which is to do with the relationship that we have with the person who teaches us to love, the person who walks alongside us when we struggle, the person who embraces us when we fall and when we get it wrong, and loves us unconditionally. We finished our wonderful service with the uplifting Benidorm mix of the Christmas Carol medley, and we left feeling overjoyed that we were able to gather together and do something different for God this year. No less beautiful, no less powerful, and absolutely wonderful as a celebration of the coming of Christ afresh and anew into our lives. Maybe our prayer this year is to God to do something different. Do something different in us and with us. And we have hearts and minds open to whatever it is that he calls us to do. So bless you as we go this last bit towards Christmas. Bless those who you love and your families and friends and all those you hold dear. We're still moving forward. We're still on our journey. We're still walking with Christ on our spiritual path, and all will be well. And one day we will meet with Christ face to face. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Until next time.